Okay, I think we're recording.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so this is our Zoom session to discuss task 2 of the CAP. You want me to go ahead and get started?
Sure, that's fine.
So this particular one was about school environment analysis, and I really, really enjoyed reading your draft. And what I would say that it's definitely aligned to the course content, and the draft includes various forms of data as visual evidence to support the narrative. When it comes to the rubric strength, the draft includes a detailed description of the school, demographic data, achievement data, and other data sources. And you also did a thorough job analyzing your school's facility, your resources, your use of time, and how teachers are empowered through leadership opportunities. The only suggestion that I would have as far as when it comes to rubric weakness is to maybe label your graphics by like figure 1 or figure 2, and then include a reference page where you got your data from. Like if it was from, whatever, your net portal at school or wherever. As far as leadership, I thought you demonstrated leadership through this assignment by your ability to access the data and to provide an analysis of the school environment. The task is written professionally and exhibits the use of proper grammar, spelling, and formatting. Organization, the task nicely addresses the prompt, and the analysis narrative was logical, organized, and professional. And when it comes to APA formatting, I would just say to, include that reference page, but everything was done proper.
Okay. And then for yours, I said that it was aligned properly with the content. I said you did a great job including your academic data evidence and the qualitative data from surveys and the interviews with your colleagues and students. As far as strengths, I said that it includes all the necessary descriptions of your school environment, your cultural diversity of your staff and your students, and other differences of the school. I said that it was arranged graphically and explained in narrative form, and the qualitative data is arranged in a table and includes responses from staff and students. And I didn't see any weaknesses. Everything was done well according to what the rubric stated. As far as leadership was demonstrated by including all stakeholders in the data gathering process. I especially like when you incorporated your students in asking them questions about how they felt about the school, if they knew who certain people were. I mean, it was just good to get everybody's point of view. Your artifact was written professionally. There were minimal grammatical errors, but they didn't take away from the professional nature of your narrative. The headings and the subheadings, they made it easy to understand and to locate the information. And all your works were cited properly. Your tables and charts and graphs, they represented your data accurately. So overall, it was a great piece.
Thank you. So I guess we can move into the video.
Sure.
The first one that I watched was, what do all great leaders have in common?
Yep. Okay.
And what I found interesting was that it talked about how 80% of leaders fail in the first 2 years. And 70% of them didn't even enjoy their job. And that I guess in this new age, there's only about a 4-year lifespan of a job. Like people tend to only stick around for about 4 years. But I thought that was just very interesting. That's kind of how he opened up. And then he went in to talk about the pointers of great leadership. And the one of them that stood out most to me was that, making connections to people and to self. That's just so important to do. And just being very reflective, about what you're doing and how you're interacting with people and your perception of yourself and even the perception of people and how they perceive you.
I found this one interesting too, because he focused on 3 different points where he talked about people having a vision and also having passion. And definitely just doing the whole connecting with yourself first. And then if you in yourself know that you are a good leader and you know which direction you want to go in, then you'll have a better chance of being an effective leader leading other people. And then also, just having that vision. What is your end point? What is your goal? What do you want to happen? And then he also said to celebrate along the way, and making sure that you kind of take time to enjoy the ride. And then having passion, he said a leader without passion lacks credibility, and I definitely feel that that's true, because I mean I can think of people who I've worked with and worked for that you could tell that there was no passion there. And then after developing yourself, then you can start developing others to build higher performing teams.
Yeah, that's the last, that was probably his, closing point. And that too, I had to put a star beside it, because I'm like, you have to be happy developing others.
You do.
And so that comes with just a passion for the job. And so I thought that was a great, and it says that's when you get high performing teams, is when you're happy doing that.
That's it.
Okay. You want to start the next one? That was
Sure. The next one I watched was New School Leadership.
Okay.
This one he kind of went through, the different changes in leadership. He kind of started with like primitive, where if you were big, tall, and strong, you would be chosen for the leader, and then kind of worked his way up to today's leadership. And then I wrote this down. I thought this was interesting, where reciprocity leadership is as important as followership. So in order to be a great leader, you have to be willing to kind of step aside and let others have that chance to show their leadership capabilities. It's not always, well, I'm the leader, I have to be in charge. I'm the one, I'm doing this. You kind of have to delegate and designate others to show their talents. And then he also said one of his main points was ordinary can become extraordinary. And so those ordinary things that we just think about, like he said something about, like if you just go out to eat and you post it on Facebook and everybody would just think it's the greatest thing ever.
Right.
And so it's just, as a leader, sometimes you can take the ordinary things and make them become extraordinary as a leader.
I agree. I mean, I could ditto everything you just said. And I think that one, and you did mention this too, just his focus on followers and how they're just as important, and that everybody really want to be involved. And that's the thing. As a leader, you have to know that your influence is major, and that you have to be able to know that they're not just followers; like they want to be actively involved as well. And when he used the analogy of, I think he used the analogy of Hitler, when he said a person that didn't use their influence well. So just because a person is popular, they know a lot of people, they can get people to listen, doesn't necessarily make them a great leader.
Right.
So I thought that was a really good analogy, because sometimes we assume that the person that can stand on stage and can present and can talk and they seem to know it all, that they're a good leader. But if they don't use that platform properly, it still isn't a successful venture.
That's
right. That was good. And he also ended that he said something about like asking someone else about you, like who, like, I thought that was pretty cool, because sometimes, we need to probably ask other people what they see in us, like how do they view us? And then that last quote he said, and he listed all those things, and he said, if you're able to do all of these things, that's leadership. I think it was like wisdom, skill, judgment, service, compassion. And I thought that was a good way to sum it up. Yeah.
I agree. And then the last video with self-leadership, he went in and he talked about the 3 characteristics. And I thought it was interesting, because these same 3 characteristics were kind of used in the first video. Of just, it was interesting how they circle back around, and it was showing the importance of where you have to focus on yourself first before you can set out to say, okay, I'm going to lead this group of people, or I'm going to be this principal or this assistant principal. You definitely have to focus on self-awareness. And he said that you would need to do character trait checks along the way. Just kind of making sure that you know who you are and what you stand for. And then of course, self-reflection is always key. And just making sure, okay, how could I have done that differently? What could I have done to maybe make the situation better? And then self-regulation, which is reframing the situation. You can't always say what you're thinking when you're thinking it. Right. And that's definitely a work in progress.
Yes. You said that's the challenge. Yes.
So it was just interesting how all 3 of the videos, they focused on starting with self. You have to take that look in the mirror and say, okay, how am I being a good leader? What am I doing? What do I need to do differently?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can work on motivating others.
Absolutely. And I agree. I mean, I just second everything you just said. What I thought was interesting was when he started the video, he was talking about utopia and how just anytime you have a group of people gathered together in some level of organization, if there's not leadership, you'll always have friction and confusion and underperformance. And I thought that was interesting because, without it, that's what happens. And so we have to sometimes wonder why we're in the state we are in as far as like schools and, academic achievement. And
Right.
it just really resonated. And also, what you were saying about how he talked about the self-reflection and self-awareness, that was just so powerful because he said if you can't lead yourself, you truly can't lead anybody else.
That's it.
So this is one of those times where you really have to like stop and just think like, and just like we did with the assignment, what is my why? What's my purpose? And so just doing, some of that, and the character trait check that he talked about in that 2 to 5 minute daily self-reflection. Okay, what could I have done different? Like, what can I do better tomorrow? I think it's just so important just for self moving into this leadership role.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we kind of wrapped it up for getting our task 2 peer review and our videos done.
Yes.
So I think that's it. Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.
All right.
Mm.